Every man in every situation has a choice to be a boy, a prince, or a king. Boys are interested in getting. They whine and complain. Princes are interested in winning. They're primarily wanting people to know that they're powerful, that they're becoming kings. A king is most interested in helping. He blesses people and he gives. Boys think, take care of me. Princes, I'll show you. And kings, how can I help? I'm Greg Montana, and I've been a life coach for 20 years. In this brief session, I'll give you insight, exercises, and tools so you can conduct yourself as the king you were meant to be. All men want to be kings. When we encourage or uplift or complain, judge, criticize, or blame someone, we are being either a boy, a prince, or a king. Notice how you live your life and make life choices towards being a king. Let's clarify some distinctions. Boys will seek money. They want to get things. Princes want fame. They want people to know that they're powerful, that they're becoming kings. They're constantly trying to prove themselves. And kings are pursuing more than anything to feel God's pleasure. They want to take action that gives them goosebumps, that makes them feel like they're really blessing people. The tools a boy will use are toys. A prince will use knowledge, and a king will use wisdom and generosity. I remember when I was in my 20s, my goal was to become a millionaire. I had a very boy-like mind. Then in my 40s, I wanted to prove myself as a speaker and be in front of people and show people that I really had amounted to something. I was in a prince mode. And now I want to experience myself as being in the abundance and the flow of the natural state of gratitude that a king would live in. Notice where you are in general in your life. What are you seeking? How are you conducting yourself to fulfill the vision that you're seeking in life? In your relationships with your wife, with your family, your friends, are you a boy, a prince, or a king? Boys, for entertainment, will want to play. A prince will want to work out his muscles. And a king is primarily interested in service. He wants to experience himself being generous. On a team, boys will want to play games. A prince will want to play sports because his primary objective is to win. And a king would form a nonprofit corporation. And we see this throughout history. There are people like Nelson Mandela or Gandhi who have been put in jail. And they basically say, well, I wasn't actually incarcerated. I just had some time to contemplate and to make the most out of my life. If you give them a lot of money, a boy will be eccentric. A prince will become a playboy. And a king will become a humanitarian philanthropist. Now, ask yourself, in your life, what are you experiencing yourself as? As I say this, take a moment and look back at your last 24 hours. Where have you been a boy, a prince, or a king? These paradigms that we're discussing, these archetypes, are so obvious and so intuitive that we don't really have to think too much about them. They're there already. Everything that you've done is to show or to experience yourself as a king. In our evolution as men, we want to be kings. We want to be of calm service. We even tell ourselves that if we won the lottery, we would go out and start some nonprofit to help a whole bunch of people. We would take care of our family in huge and wonderful ways. We would do incredible things for the world. But if you've lived your life as a prince your whole life, what you'll find is, given lots of money, you'll become a playboy. What we've found also is that if you've never been exposed to a king in your life, let's say throughout your childhood, you had a relatively immature set of parents, or you never really had the influence of a coach or a mentor, or someone like a grandfather that was wise and could lead you in life, or set a good example, really. What you probably would experience is that you don't really have a real vision of what a king is. I mean, let's face it, we're not born with this intuitively. We know as we develop that there's this thing, this way of being, that transcends all our fears and worries in life. A way of being where we can be giving and generous. And that's the way of the king. And no matter who we are or where we are, in every situation, there's always something that we can afford to bless people with. A king will be confident. He'll know that he has all the resources necessary to bless people. He'll be quiet and conserved. He'll listen. A prince will be far more interested in impressing you with what they know, and again, always interested in winning. Now, there is an appropriate place to be a boy, and that's if you're a child. There's an appropriate place to be a prince, and that's if you're a teenager. And there's an appropriate place to be a king, when you're a man. What are you challenged by right now? What are you looking forward to in the next few days? And how were you planning to conduct yourself? Were you planning to dominate, like a prince? To let people know who you are, where you stand? Were you planning to show up like the victim and say, you know what, in this situation, I just have to prove to them that they have to take care of me? Or were you planning to be a king? Were you walking in with the mindset, I'm going to bless everyone in that room. I know that this will work out beautifully for everyone. I just need to keep my heart focused on the outcome that I want. Kings, when they become enraged, become heroes. When they're upset or angry, they'll be at least a friend. When a prince is enraged, he'll pick a fist fight. At very least, he'll be a bully. And when a boy is enraged, he'll throw a tantrum and at the very least be a brat. If you're a young man and you've never been exposed to a king, a father, a mentor, a coach, a teacher, a grandfather, you can still learn these things. Probably intuitively you already know about them. So who are you? And how do you want to be perceived? And what does it look like for you to be a king? And how will you get there? Most boys who graduate to be princes and kings go through rites of passage. A bar mitzvah is when a boy takes a rite of passage into being a man. The American Indians have something similar where they'll send people out into the woods and they have to survive for a few days. Princes go through rites of passage as well. Many of them want to be noble knights. I remember someone that came to me, he was a teenager, and he said, I know there's more to life and I know I want to be more successful, but I'm not quite sure how to go about it. I said, well, if you're going to experience yourself being more, then we're going to have to do some things that are unreasonable. And I suggested that he come up with a project, something that if he were to accomplish it, he would know that he was a real man, a king. And he said, well, I'd like to feed a bunch of people for Thanksgiving. I said, well, how many? He said, a dozen? I said, okay, but what if you could really experience yourself as being a king and being able to bless a large number of people? How many would it be? He said, well, I guess I'd feed 100 people. I said, well, let's do it. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, don't worry, we can do this. We'll take it one step at a time. If you're going to feed 100 people, then you're going to have to tell people that you're taking this on. What he did was he went and told his friends, people that he met, acquaintances, that he, for Thanksgiving, was going to feed 100 people. To his surprise, there were people that rose up to help him at every turn. When I told my wife, she actually called a local news station and said, hey, you got to cover this guy. He's going to try and feed 100 people for Thanksgiving. And he was just a teenager. What ends up happening is he gets all of the food donated. He does it in a public park. On the day that he said he was going to feed 100 people, there were way more than 100 that showed up, and a local church donated a lot of the extra food that they had that day for Thanksgiving. There were 2 news stations that covered him, interviewed him, and he ended up starting a nonprofit. In business, a boy will want to learn the ropes. He'll feel that he has to pay his dues. A prince will seek promotions and raises, and a king will become a cultural influencer. Spiritually, boys will seek to get good grades, an A+, or likes on Facebook. prince might seek to be sexy or popular. He'll want praise. And a king will seek quality of life for himself and those around him. As far as politics are concerned, boys basically ignore them. A prince will campaign. He'll want to convince other people, because again, it's all about power and it's all about winning. And for a king, he will stand for the highest good for the most involved. In athletics, boys will be focused on the rules, fairness, making sure that they're not left behind. A prince will be focused on, again, winning, so they may gamble, they may even cheat. But a king will be focused on coaching. How can he bring out the best of the other people on the team? In rehab, and I used to work in rehab for about 8 years, and I'd see all of the spectrum of boys, princes, and kings. Boys will focus on my rights and what you're not doing to make sure I'm taken care of. A prince will want to basically ride it out. And a king, when one of the people in a rehab center decides to become a king, they become the sober leader of the group. They want to go to bat to make sure everybody shows up on time. They encourage people and uplift them. They tell them, you can do this. We can do it together. They're helping wash the dishes, making sure that everyone's comfortable or that everyone has what they need in order to take notes or learn what they need to learn. And it's amazing. You can almost send the staff home in a rehab center when one of the participants in the program decides to be a king. When cut off in traffic, a boy might flip the finger. A prince might want to chase him down, report him to the police. A king would basically say, whoa, this guy's probably trying to get somebody to the hospital. Let me make some space for him. His primary concern is to keep everyone safe. If you ask a boy to take out the trash, he'll say, Mom, I'm playing my games. A prince will say, well, what about you? Why don't you take it out? I'm always taking out the trash. And a king will just say, sure. Oh, and by the way, is there anything I can do for you on the way? If you were to threaten them with a gun, a boy will run and hide. A prince will fight. He'll want to stop by force what's happening. A king will want to discuss and protect everyone. He'll want to do what he can to calm things down and to appeal to everyone to rise up and do the wise thing. If someone has a heart attack, boy will say, call mom. A prince will say, call 911, get a doctor. A king will step in, do CPR, and ask someone around if they'll call 911. In the face of a speeding ticket, boy's likely to just pay it. Prince, of course, will hire a lawyer. A king will talk to the judge. If he was being a king when he was driving, he'll basically explain what he was doing, and he'll accept whatever the judge has to offer. If he was driving like a boy or a prince, he knows he does not even have a right to plead not guilty. So, likely, he'll show up and basically say, I was wrong, and I'm glad this happened because it's a profound learning lesson for me. In bankruptcy, a boy will just get depressed. A prince will bounce back. He's going to prove himself. A king will pray and meditate and find what the message is. He'll glean the wisdom out of every situation. If you hand them lemons, a boy will complain that they're too sour. A prince will make lemonade, and a king will share the lemons with his neighbors. I have a request that you use this information for your evolution, but never use it to correct or judge your partners in life. I would like to see you learn to invite the women in your life to be queens and the men in your life to be kings. Your conduct can have a profound impact on anyone in your life, inviting them to either be a queen or a king, with every sentence, with every action. And if you want help stepping into your king, check us out at lifecamp.com.